In this lesson, you'll learn about the Cox proportional hazards model. You'll learn how the Cox model can take into account patient variables to compare the risk of different patients using their patient profile. So in this video, we'll chat about the Cox proportional hazards. Thus far, we've looked at how for a population of patients, we can build a survival model to estimate quantities like the survival function, which tells us the probability of survival up to some time t. And we can use the survival function to also derive a hazard function, which we can also use to derive a cumulative hazard function. And we can also directly estimate these quantities and use those quantities to estimate the other quantities like the survival or the cumulative hazard. So let's say we come up with a hazard function for a patient population. We're going to have the same hazard that we apply to all of the patients within the population. So no matter if that's patient 1, patient 2, or patient 3. But the issue with this is that in reality, these patients look very different from each other. And so representing their risks with one hazard function might seem like we're not really taking into account their individual differences, which might inform differences in their hazard. For example, if we have a 50-year-old smoker, we might expect their risk to be very different from a younger patient who's a non-smoker, who's going to be different from an older patient, non-smoker. So the next challenge for us is, can we come up with a hazard function that is going to be specific to these patients, like lambda 1, lambda 2, and lambda 3 of t. So how do we model the hazard for an individual patient? Well, one way we can do it is the following. We can say the hazard for an individual at any time t is going to be the baseline hazard at time t, which we're going to represent with lambda 0 or lambda naught, let me call that the baseline, times some multiplicative factor. And we'll see what this is in a bit. So we have our baseline here represented by the orange line. This specifies what the hazard curve looks like for the population. And then this is saying to get to my individual hazard, which is the red line, I'm going to multiply this baseline risk by some factor. And here we're going to have the factor 1.35 and use that to multiply this curve by 1.35 to get our individual estimate for the hazard. And why is this individual? The reason this is individual is because our factor is going to be determined by a patient variables. So here the patient variables that we're going to use are going to be whether the patient is a smoker and what their age is.